What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. Let's continue our conversation with the Black Murdersrow. Now, we left off discussing Charlie Burley's career. We'll get more into Charlie Burley, but let's take you back to Harry Smith, Harold Anthony Smith, who was known as the Harlem Thunderbolt. Because I believe at that point, that's when the colored middleweight division, as it was formed, really started having problems, and how that Black Murdersrow was really created. You see, Harlem Thunderbolt Harry Smith was born October 28, 1907 in Kingston, Jamaica. Now, he would die September 19, 1933 in Chicago, Illinois. He would suffer from a disease, and that would explain the 7 losses he would have towards the end of his career. But he was a remarkable puncher and a remarkable fighter. He stood 6 foot 1 inch and weighed 155 to 175 and 3/4 pounds. He was managed by David Brown. Now, he defeated such fighters such as Billy Alger, Homer Robinson, Jack McVeigh, who was known as the Pride of Harlem, William Landon Gorilla Jones, who would eventually become the second black middleweight champion in boxing history, Pal Silvers. Now, on November 16th, 1929, he would defeat Harlem's own Jack McVeigh, as I stated to you, Julius Williams. He was known as the Pride of Harlem. He was from Athens, Georgia. He stood 5 foot 9 inches, and he was a middleweight. He would become the colored middleweight champion. Ironically enough, Panama Joe Gans would be dethroned by Larry Estridge. Larry Estridge was considered the Black Stanley Ketchel. He was a southpaw. He had a bald head like Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And he could punch. He could box. But when Theodore Tiger Flowers was dethroned by Mickey Walker, who was known as the Toy Bulldog, the colored middleweight championship division was extinct. So Larry Estridge had lost rights to his colored middleweight championship belt. Now, when Mickey Walker defeated Theodore Tiger Flowers, the fight took place in Chicago. Al Capone had his name written all over that fight. And Mickey Walker did not win that fight. It was a setup fight, and Theodore Tiger Flowers was robbed of his title. At that point, the colored middleweight division would now be reintroduced. Jack McVeigh, the Harlem Thunderbolt, would meet up with one another. And that fight took place in 1929 at the Harlem Athletic Club. It was a much anticipated fight. It made a lot of money. And it was the closest thing to a world title fight that Harlemites would be looking forward to. Mickey Walker had in his contract, once he became champion, he would draw the color line. He would not defend his title against a black fighter. So Mickey Walker was offered $70,000 by Dave Brown in behalf of Harry Smith. And Mickey Walker turned down the fight. He refused to accept the money. Many knew that Harry Smith would knock out Mickey Walker. Harry Smith had a record of 60-0 with 55 knockouts as an amateur. He was offered to fight in the 1928 Olympic Games. He turned down the offer. Mickey Walker would eventually move up from middleweight to light heavyweight. Now, Mickey Walker had 3 black fighters in the top 5. Harry Smith, the Harlem Thunderbolt. William Landon Jones, Gorilla Jones. And Len Johnson. And he had to fight one of them. He relinquished his title. So this would create a tournament. And Harry Smith could not participate in the tournament because of his illness. Len Johnson could not possibly fight for a title because of the law in England. If you had an ounce of black blood in your body in England, you could not fight for a title. So the only one left was William Landon Jones. He would take on Ozone Piazza. He would defeat him and become the 2nd black middleweight champion of the world. Well, then he would take on Marcel Theo. Marcel Theo would claim a low blow, and Landon Jones would lose his middleweight championship, precious title. So the colored middleweight championship division, once again, would be recreated in 1936. Now, in 1938 is when you would have your first colored championship division. And what was interesting, now Pittsburgh's Charlie Burley was born as Charles Dwayne Burley, September 6, 1917 in Bismarck, Pennsylvania. He died October 16, 1992. He would end his career with a record of 98 total bouts, 83 wins, 50 knockouts, 12 losses, 2 draws, and 1 no contest. He defeated Archie Moore twice, 7 bouts with Holman Williams, 3 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. It would be turned into a no contest. He would defeat Coco Kid for the World Colored Welterweight Championship title in 1938. Here is what's interesting about 1938. Could be arguably the greatest year for black fighters in boxing history. How so? Henry Armstrong, who would become the welterweight champion in 1938 when he would defeat Barney Ross at the New York's Madison Square Garden Bowl, had already had the featherweight championship belt when he would defeat Petey Cerrone in New York's Madison Square Garden in 1937. Well, then he would pick up the lightweight championship belt the same year in 1938 when he would defeat Lou Ambers, the Hickenmeyer Hurricane. So now he had 3 lineal world championship titles, but he had them simultaneously. So Henry Armstrong would have the featherweight, the lightweight, and the welterweight championship belt. You only had 8 divisions during that time. No black middleweight champion at this moment. They were never given a chance after William Gorilla Jones would defeat Ozone Piazza and lose it to Marcel Theo. But in the light heavyweight division, you would have John Henry Lewis when he would defeat Bob Olin in 1935. And he would become the first American black fighter to hold that distinction. In the heavyweight division, you would have Joe Louis Barrow. He would become the second black heavyweight champion in boxing history. So he held the heavyweight championship belt. John Henry Lewis would hold the light heavyweight championship belt. Henry Armstrong would hold the welterweight, the lightweight, and the featherweight championship belt. But Charlie Burley would become the colored welterweight champion when he would dethrone the Puerto Rican star, Coco Kid, Herbert Lewis Hardwood. Sugar Ray Robinson, who at that time was Walker Smith, changing into Ray Robinson. As a matter of fact, in order for him to fight in this particular tournament, he had to change his name to Ray Robinson because he had to be older than what he initially was. He would win the Metropolitan Bantamweight Championship belt as an amateur. Ezzard Charles will win a championship in the middleweight division as an amateur. So the landscape was heating up with future fighters and present fighters that were dominating the game of boxing. Henry Armstrong would wind up defending that welterweight championship belt 19 times before he would lose to Fritzy Zivik in 1940 of October 4th. Jack Chase would lose his California light heavyweight championship title to Charlie Burley. He would defeat Watson Jones for that title. (1938) would be, in my opinion, the greatest year for black fighters. No question about it. When Joe Louis would knock out Max Schmeling in New York's Yankee Stadium in one round, that would seal the deal for that conversation. Because the way he made Harlem feel, Detroit feel, Chicago feel, the world feel, everyone was rooting for Joe Louis. Joe Louis was a black fighter. And I'm putting this all in context to show you what this meant in the world of pugilism. It was probably the most gratifying moment in all of sports because it showed equality, it showed opportunity starting to brew. Now, as we get reacquainted with these fighters, let's take a second look. Charlie Burley became the world colored middleweight champion and one of 3 defeats over Holman Williams, August 14th, 1942, with a 9-round KO in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, what was special about this was that although you couldn't give Charlie Burley an opportunity for the World Championship title, the established World Championship title. You couldn't hold him back for winning available titles that was eligible, quote unquote, for him. Holman Williams, who was born January 30th, 1915 in Pensacola, Florida, would be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame 1996 and the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2008. He would die July 15th, 1967. He would fight Bob Satterfield, Coco Kid, Steve Balois, Izzy Genazzo 3 times, Archie Moore, Marcel Sedan, Kid Tenero, Jack Chase 3 times, Burt Lytell 4 times, Jacob LaMotta, Charlie Burley 3 times, Little Tiger Aaron Wade, O'Neal Bell of Detroit, Eddie Booker, Black Dynamite, Lloyd Marshall, Jose Basora, Joe Carter, Antonio Fernandez, Jack Chase, Little Tiger Aaron Wade, Burt Lytell, Archie Moore, Jake LaMotta, Paulie Walker, Baby Tiger Flowers. He would lose his colored World Middleweight Championship title January 15, 1943, New Orleans, Louisiana, in 12 rounds, to Herbert Lewis Hardwick, who was known as Coco Kid, who fought from featherweight to middleweight. He was born May 2nd, 1914 in Mayo West, Puerto Rico. He died December 27th, 1966 in Chicago, Illinois. He would end his career with a record of 244 total bouts, 176 wins, 48 knockouts, 58 losses, and 10 draws. Let's keep this in perspective. The amount of dives that Coco Kid had to take, the weight divisions that he had to fluctuate in. Think of the time in which he came. He would face fighters such as Eddie Booker and Holman Williams, Jack Chase and Burt Lytell, Lloyd Marshall, Charlie Burley. Coco Kid would defeat Holman Williams, January 15, 1943 in New Orleans. He would become the first colored welterweight champion in the new era and the last colored middleweight champion. Remarkable feat by Herbert Lewis Hardwick. Once again, he's my 3rd greatest black Murdersrow fighter of all times. And he's my number 1 greatest Puerto Rican fighter of all times. Never got the opportunity to fight for a world title. Now, after Bug Schubert would name 8 men who were deprived of getting opportunities for world championship titles, he would name them the Black Murdersrow. And he would speak to Nat Flasher, who was the editor of Ring Magazine. We need to get these young men an award of some kind. And they came up with a ring belt. So the colored division would now have a belt, and it was a ring belt. Holman Williams fought from 1932 to 1948. He had a record of 146, 31-11, and 36 knockouts. He would take on Coco Kid 14 times. He would lose 9. Charlie Burley, 7 bouts, 3 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. It would be converted into a no contest. Lloyd Marshall, 2 wins, 1 loss. Jack Chase, 4 wins, no losses. Eddie Booker, 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 no decision. Little Tiger Aaron Wade, 2 wins, 1 loss. And Archie Moore, 1 win, 1 loss. Holman Williams had a remarkable record against the colored division and members of the Black Murdersrow. When you take a look at Charlie Burley, his record against these magnificent fighters, he had a record of 83 total bouts, 12 losses, 2 draws, 50 knockouts. He fought from 1936 to 1950. Introduced in the Boxing Hall of Fame, 2013. He would take on Coco Kid, 1 win, no losses. Holman Williams, 3 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw. Jack Chase, Little Joe Louis, 3 wins, no losses. Little Tiger Aaron Wade, 1 win, no losses. Archie Moore, 2 wins. Burt Lytell, 1 win, 1 loss. What was amazing about Charlie Burley, he would defeat Jack Chase for the California middleweight championship title. And he would defeat him for the California light heavyweight championship title. He was an explosive puncher, a mastermind in the ring. He would look up and punch down, look down and punch up. He would half step backwards as he was punching you, leading you to a trap of his left hand. And he would drop it down the pipe. He can convert southpaw and orthodox. He can move from left to right, forward and backwards, double up and triple up with the left hand. He was leading right-hand leads in 1938. He was one of the greatest fighters in boxing history, like Sam Langford and Elzar Charles. They would never get opportunities in their prime. Elzar Charles received it in 1949. Had it not been for Joe Louis appointing him and Jersey Joe Walcott to face one another, Elzar Charles perhaps would have never received an opportunity. When you look at Black Dynamite, Eddie Booker, San Jose, California, he was introduced in the Boxing Hall of Fame in 2017. He fought from 1935 to 1944. He would take on Holman Williams, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 draw. Coco Kid, 1 loss. Archie Moore, 1 win, 1 loss, 2 draws. Lloyd Marshall, 1 win, no losses. Jack Chase, 1 loss. He won the California State Middleweight Championship title. Lost it to Jack Chase. Died at the age of 77 after an eye injury. He was an amazing fighter. Injured that eye after facing Holman Williams and never recovered. Reminds me of Harry Greb, the Pittsburgh Windmill, and the Georgia Deacon Theodore Tiger Flowers. What a great fighter, suffering from an eye injury, dying from that procedure. When you take a look at young Joe Louis Jack Chase, who was born in Wallsburg, Colorado, defeated Eddie Booker for the California State Middleweight Championship title, defeated Watson Jones for the California State Light Heavyweight Championship title. He would lose both of them to Charlie Burley. Would take on Eddie Booker, 1 win. Charlie Burley, 2 losses. Little Tiger Aaron Wade, 2 wins, 1 draw. Lloyd Marshall, 2 losses, 1 draw. Holman Williams, he was 4-4. Archie Moore, 7 total bouts, 6 losses and 1 win. The 2 losses to Charlie Burley were both of them for his title shots. He would lose all his belts to one man, and that's Charlie Burley. As we go through the total records of the Black Murdersrow, third wave, Charlie Burley, 18 total bouts, 11 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw, and 3 knockouts. Holman Williams, 35 total bouts, 16 wins, 15 losses, and 4 draws. Lloyd Marshall, 9 total bouts, 3 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Eddie Booker, 6 total bouts, 2 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw. Little Tiger Aaron Wade, 10 total bouts, 2 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw. Jack Chase, 15 total bouts, 4 wins, 9 losses, 2 draws, 1 knockout. Burt Lytell, 10 total bouts, 6 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, and 1 knockout. Coco Kid, 21 total bouts, 10 wins, 8 losses, 3 draws, no knockouts. Now, when you look at Archie Moore, he had 23 total bouts, 14 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws. And he's the only one who would find the chin of his opponents. He had 7 knockouts over the Black Murdersrow, the most. Jimmy Bivens, 2 total bouts, 2 wins, 1 knockout. Elmer Violent Ray, 13 total bouts with O.B. Walker. Ezard Charles fought Archie Moore 3 times, Charlie Burley twice, and defeated both of them. Walcott, 4 total bouts, 1 win against Ezard Charles. Archie Moore, 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw against Black Murdersrow. Jack Chase, 6 total bouts with Archie Moore. And we look at the first wave of Black Murdersrow. Dave Holly had 3 total bouts. Harry Wills, 22 total bouts, 6 wins, 2 losses. He had 15 no-decision contests. When you look at Sam Langford and Joe Jeanette, 14 total bouts, 4 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws, and 5 no decisions. Langford and Jim Barry fought 12 times, 6 wins and 6 no decisions. Langford and Jeff Clark would be in the ring many times, 3 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, and 5 no decisions. Langford and Sam McVeigh, 15 total bouts, 4 wins, 2 losses, 4 draws, and 5 no decisions. Langford and Battling Jim Johnson, 11 total bouts, 9 wins, 2 no decision contests. Jack Johnson and Joe Jeanette, 7 bouts. When you include exhibitions, it would be 10, but it's 7 total bouts. 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, 5 no decision contests. Now, as we briefly go over the schedule of the Black Murdersrow, Coco Kid versus Holman Williams, March 13th, 1936, at the Coliseum New Orleans Arena. 70 wins total, 20 losses, 5 draws, and 22 knockouts of Coco Kid. Holman Williams had 31 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, and 17 knockouts. 10 rounds, Coco Kid wins via unanimous decision. Coco Kid would win the USA New England Welterweight Championship crown. He would also win the vacant USA New England Middleweight Championship crown. In the same fight, May 27, 1935, in Boston Arena, Massachusetts, 10 rounds, against the same fighter, Frankie Britt. It was his 85th professional bout. October 23, 1934, he would lose in 6 rounds to Bat Ballino at the Foot Ground Hall in Hartford, Connecticut. Coco Kid's 76th professional prize fight. He would defeat Louis Kid Kaplan and Johnny Jaddick. Coco Kid versus Holman Williams, April 17th, 1936, at the Coliseum Arena in New Orleans. Coco Kid would have 71 wins, 20 losses, 5 draws, and 22 knockouts. Holman Williams would have 31 wins, 3 losses, and 17 knockouts. Coco Kidd would win in 10 rounds, unanimous decision. July 26, 1936, Coco Kidd would knock out young Peter Jackson at the Hyman Park in New Orleans. He would stop him in 2 rounds, and he would win the Colored World Welterweight Championship title. It was vacant. And that would draw a very good distinction of Coco Kidd. He fought in many weight divisions, from featherweight to middleweight. But he would be the first colored champion as a welterweight in the third wave of Black Murdersrow. Holman Williams versus Coco Kidd, March 12, 1937, New Orleans Coliseum Arena. Holman Williams had 36 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws, and 20 knockouts. Coco Kidd had 88 wins, 21 losses, 5 draws, and 25 knockouts. Holman Williams would win 12 rounds, unanimous decision. Coco Kidd would face Holman Williams June 11, 1937 at the Coliseum Arena, New Orleans. Coco Kidd had 91 wins, 23 losses, 5 draws, and 26 knockouts. Holman Williams would have 39 wins, 5 losses, 2